Keir Starmer is denying that the conflict in the Middle East is causing a chasm in the Labour Party after he defended his decision not to back a ceasefire in Gaza. That was yesterday. After he made that speech at Chatham House, he was mobbed, as you can see, as he came out by a lot of protesters who were shouting war criminal. There is obviously a problem inside the Labour Party. Some people want to see a stronger stance being taken by Starmer. But I thought, as I said yesterday, that he probably said the right thing. I'm joined now by former senior advisor to Labour, Mr. James Robinson. James, very good morning to you. Welcome. Morning. I thought Starmer had a pretty good day yesterday, by and large. I mean, he basically had an opportunity to either move to the left of the party or to sort of stand firm and basically say, no, I'm not going to bow to this pressure. I don't care whether Sadiq Khan said it. Don't care whether Andy Burnham said it. Don't care whether Anna Sarwar said it up in Scotland. I'm going to still say that we don't need a ceasefire at this time. Let's have a look.
While I understand calls for a ceasefire at this stage, I do not believe that it is the correct position now for two reasons. One, because a ceasefire always freezes any conflict in the state where it currently lies. And as we speak, that would leave Hamas with the infrastructure and the capability to carry out the sort of attack we saw on October the 7th. My second reason, which is that our current calls for pauses in the fighting for clear and specific humanitarian purposes, and which must start immediately, is right in practice as well as principle.
Stephen Pollard from the Jewish Chronicle, James, said, I think last week in the Mail, you know, this will be a real test of what kind of leader Keir Starmer is going to be. And I think he's got the right idea here, hasn't he?
Oh, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think he set out his position clearly, very articulately, in a very thoughtful speech. Maybe it could have been made earlier, maybe it could have been made a week ago.
That is an issue that people say all the time, isn't it? That you could have said this a week ago, or he could have done that a week ago. You know, he took a week to explain what he said to Nick Ferrari. You know, there's always a kind of a lull, isn't there, in his reactions?
Yeah, but it's better to get it right than to be quick sometimes. And I think his position is, as I say, very well articulated and explained, and is the right one. Yeah. I happen to think, as you do. So it is, I think Pollard was right, and other commentators have been right, that this is it is a test of his leadership. It's the biggest test of his leadership, I think, yet. Right. But I think he's passing it, and I think...
and the question remains, I suppose, is that will that do anything to placate the side of the Labour Party that doesn't agree with him, or will they just get more and more noisy? Because, I mean, I haven't really seen... I've seen some tweets from Sadiq Khan and from other, you know, sort of left-leaning pro-Palestinian Labour MPs who have been trying to sort of say that they also feel very sorry for things that are happening to the Jewish communities around the world as well. But it's still difficult to tell whether this rift is going to get bigger or get smaller.
Well, I think, I don't want to sound like a politician myself, but I think a lot of the people, the critics of the policy in the party, in the shadow front bench and elsewhere will have heard what Keir said and will reflect on what is sensible for them to say at this time. Right. Because there is a difference of opinion. There is a difference of opinion. There's no point disguising that. But if you're part of a political party, you are obliged to take the lead from in this case, Keir Starmer. Yeah. That is the Labour Party policy. Yeah. So I think this is a big moment for Keir yesterday, and I think that it will help heal some of the wounds and going forward. I can only hope that's the case.
There are many, of course, in the Labour Party who worry not just about differences of opinion, though, but actually differences of opinion which could lead to a lack of votes, particularly from some in the Muslim community, because we're told that they've got something like 5 million votes in the Muslim community in this country, 70% of whom vote for the Labour Party. If they decide they're not going to do that, that's a problem for them.
It is, but look, well, there's 2 points there. First of all, to talk about the politics of it, which might sound a bit insensitive, most of those seats are solidly Labour. Yeah. It would take a big swing for the Labour to lose those seats when there are those.
Because they're mostly inner city seats.
Yeah, I mean, they're big, they're 20,000. Yeah. I mean, you can't take them for granted, but they're 20,000 majorities, 20 or 30,000 majorities. There are some marginal seats. I think Peterborough's one where that isn't the case. So it would be wrong to claim that it'll have no impact. It could. Elections a year away. We don't know what the situation will be in the Middle East come then. Yeah. But yeah, of course it's a factor. But I think it's very important for the Labour Party to say that this is a terrorist attack. there's 200 hostages there still,
Well, this is
including
the
foreign
trouble.
nationals.
And for all
they
these
need
people,
to acknowledge that before they talk about the Palestinian cause.
And also, before they start talking about ceasefires, you can't have a ceasefire with an organisation which is vowing not only to wipe you off the map, but is also holding 200 of your citizens against their own will, having taken them from their own country.
That's why you can't have a ceasefire, as Keir Starmer said. That locks in their advantage and allows them to prepare future attacks. A ceasefire with a terrorist organisation is very different from a ceasefire between two states. And as you say, Hamas want to impose a caliphate on the Middle East. They want to impose Sharia law. I don't believe most people in the Middle East want Sharia law.
No.
I don't believe they want Israel to be wiped off the face of the earth.
You can see, despite the fact that there may be other countries like Iran who would have that sort of policy, and possibly Lebanon with Hezbollah, but certainly when you look at Egypt and you look at Jordan, both countries which are neighbouring to Palestine, both of whom have said we don't want to take any Palestinian refugees because we don't want to bring Hamas into our country, effectively.
Well, that's the Middle East situation, isn't it? And that's why Hamas have launched this attack, I strongly suspect, because they know and they see that Israel has reached accommodations with many of these former enemies over the last decades. And they're doing that. They were making a lot of progress with the Saudis and others on that. That's why Hamas, I think, started this war, because they don't want to see reconciliation between Israel and its Arab neighbours.
It doesn't suit them to have peace, does it? I mean, it suits them to be at war, and that's what they want. That's what they do. And also, when people talk of a ceasefire, it's almost as though there's only rockets going in one direction. It's not true. There are rockets going into Israel every single hour of every single day.
Indeed. And I think, this is about, we're not a foreign affairs show, I don't think, but this is about geopolitics.
Well, we do everything here. We do absolutely everything.
It's about Iran. I mean, Iran are the malign actor in the Middle East, and they have been for many, many years, ever since 1979.
And how does that change? Because, I mean, there are some who say that the only time Iran sort of was better behaved than this was when Donald Trump was president. Now there are very different views on that. But basically, he did appear to have them sort of where he wanted them, if you like, and now they seem to be flexing their muscles a bit more with Joe Biden in charge.
Well, I'm not sure. I can't remember them being particularly well behaved. I mean, they weren't.
Well, they weren't funding Hamas to go into Israel and advising them to do so.
That's true, but the Hamas's timing was all its own choosing, I think. But I'm not sure Trump. I wouldn't necessarily regard Trump as a.
Well, he tore up the Barack Obama deal, didn't he? Which was something that I think a lot of people thought was perhaps wrongly intended and didn't really work.
Well, I mean, I'm personally quite pleased, and I think we all are, that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. I'll be very keen to see that never happens. So if there's a deal that could be done with Iran, talking about deals, that ensures they never get their hands on nuclear weapons, I think that's one that should be pursued and not ruled out. I mean, that was the Obama deal you referred to, wasn't it?
Yes.
Which Trump didn't like. I don't know. It doesn't matter how you get there. All you need to ensure is that those lunatics never get their hands on nukes.
Let's just get back closer to home. When Keir Starmer came out of that speech, as I say yesterday, he was mobbed by protesters who were calling him a war criminal and accusing him of siding with, the wrong side, Israel, effectively. But one thing that I was shocked by, and it was pointed out to me by somebody who follows Keir Starmer and takes pictures of him and stuff like that, is that his security is quite low level considering where he currently now is. Because if he was to become Prime Minister, obviously his security would go up immediately. But as leader of the opposition, he's got less security than Sadiq Khan, who's the mayor of London, who has 2 cars, one of which is bulletproof, one of which follows the first car, and he's got 4 detectives security all the time. Keir Starmer's only got 2 and 1 car.
Yeah, I'm surprised to learn that. Because that clearly seems wrong. I mean, Sadiq has a unique profile and a unique. I know he's threatened regularly, as is his family. But if Keir Starmer is the next Prime Minister, he may be, he may not, he could be. That needs. If you look at what happened at conference as well, and what happened yesterday,
well, I mean, that was
got far too close.
That was astonishing. I mean, that protester should never have got anywhere near him. He shouldn't have got anywhere near the stage, never mind anywhere near him enough to actually drop stuff on him. Because, I mean, people said, he obviously tried to look as if he didn't mind. Well, I think most of us would be pretty shaken by somebody going that close to you and being able to physically touch you and drop something on your head.
Anything could have happened. I mean, he handled it brilliantly. I mean, yesterday the protesters got far too close as well. So I think that obviously needs to be looked at.
Well, particularly now when we've got the Prime Minister telling the police and the security services to prepare for some kind of terrorist activity. Because I think they're going to have to get to grips with this, with the marches that are going through central London. There's another one planned for Saturday, big rally at Trafalgar Square. We saw last night a load of people turning up at Liverpool Street Station. Absolutely interfering with people who were just trying to go about their daily business. And I think in times of kind of terror, you really don't want the police to be distracted by, hundreds, possibly thousands of people marching about, preventing them from even policing the streets.
They're stretched. I mean, I think, look, we are lucky we live in a country where you can protest and you're free to protest. But I do worry, I think we all worry that this war in the Middle East could arrive in the UK
well, I mean, that's
in the most terrible way.
Well, we had an incident in Paris yesterday where the police shot dead a woman on the metro who was threatening to blow herself up. I'm surprised that we haven't yet had something like that. It's probably down to the good work of security services. But it's a worrying time for an awful lot of people.
And can you imagine the Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition, being in a position where he could be attacked? So
yeah.
I think that has to be right.
I think they have to address it, absolutely. Let's just move on briefly, James. Dominick Cummings making a lot of the front pages. Now Cummings feels the heat. The Daily Mail trying to make him out to be the worst sort of offender in the whole COVID series. It was quite entertaining television yesterday. But thinking back to that time, I don't know how you were affected by it. I mean, it was a very weird time for everyone. I was working every day, but the streets were deserted for a while. It was a very odd time. And we're learning now more and more what we sort of suspected, that basically nobody really knew what was going on.
Well, we were all affected, weren't we?
Yeah.
To a greater, lesser extent. But Dominick Cummings was right. I mean, I know he incites strong feelings from most people, but he was right. I mean, thank God he was there because, I think he was right. The debate about lockdowns can continue, and this inquiry, that's one of the reasons inquiries been set up.
Both he and Boris Johnson and others seem to sort of shilly-shally between different points of view at different times.
No, it was chaos. I mean, it clearly was chaos and dysfunction.
So when you say he was right, what are you saying he was right about?
I'm saying he was right that the NHS would have collapsed if we hadn't had a lockdown. I think that's my personal view. But there are other views.
Well, some people would say that the NHS did collapse. I mean, that's part of the problem. That the NHS, which was already not in a great place, is now much worse because of what happened during COVID.
Well, there are knock-on effects for the NHS and the economy. And I mean, that's why we're having an inquiry and that's the debate. But I mean, at least Dominick Cummings had a consistent point of view and argued for it. Boris Johnson, the famous trolley, Boris Johnson, Cummings calls him, didn't seem to know what to do from 1 week to the next. I mean, it's pretty shocking, actually. I mean,
well, I think one of the most shocking things that he came out with, we're seeing pictures now from the COVID inquiry that's live going on today. One of the most shocking things was his kind of categorisation of members of the cabinet as being pretty much useless and not really fit for purpose and not really in charge of anything. And most of the jobs that were being done, seemingly, were being done by officials.
Yeah, well, Dominick Cummings, I mean, he does seem to think that he would have done a better job in nearly every job in the world. Up to and including
I mean, I think
the United States than anyone who actually does them. So
I think there is an amount of self-delusion going on. And also, he was part of that machine. So for him to kind of, be very, very dismissive of it and how useless it all was, well, he was at the heart of it.
Well, I know, it's a bit selective, isn't it? I mean, he's an interesting character. I mean,
he is.
I happen to think he was right on the lockdown, but honestly, you were there, mate. It's all very convenient that when you look back at it, you realise that you were right about everything and everyone else was either wrong or incompetent or both. I mean, a bit of humility wouldn't go amiss. To be honest.
I don't think he does humility very well. No. The fact that he sat in Holy Island preparing himself for this particular day in the sunshine tells you all you need to know about him. And also the fact that he became kind of obsessed with bringing down Boris Johnson. And I think he still is obsessed with that. I think he's still very much a guy who wants to kind of seek and act out some kind of revenge play on a man that he thinks somehow was so useless that he should have never been in Downing Street. He helped put him in there.
Well, he's the one who got him in Downing
Well, exactly.
Street. I mean, but maybe he should have thought about that before he decided to make him Prime Minister.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you put that in an interesting way. I mean, was it Dominick Cummings that made him Prime Minister?
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, certainly Boris Johnson was good at getting a victory at the election. I said this yesterday, that, when that election happened and Labour were trounced and there was an 80-seat majority, we moved into January, we're moving out of the European Union. It all seemed like a very rosy place. The world seemed like this could be really an opportunity for Britain to become a very, very much better country. And then it all kind of went down the toilet.
Yeah, I mean, COVID, we couldn't plan for that, could you? But, I clearly didn't. But look, Dominick Cummings, his strategy, he was the master tactician, and Boris was the front of house guy. So Dominick Cummings, he destroyed the man he made Prime Minister. It's all, I mean, it's a bit unedifying. You don't want to sound pompous, but this is a great country. We're still a great country. Our best days are ahead of us. But that episode is, I mean, honestly, you do think, just let the other laugh.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Well, I know. I mean, we'll hear more, I'm sure, from the COVID inquiry today.